And we're back. Our next guest is Betsy Swimmer with the Route 66 Native Arts Alliance. Betsy, good to have you here.
Oh, hey, Sam. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
What in the world is the Native Arts Alliance?
Well, it started out as kind of a grassroots movement, and it was formed by artists. So it's artist-driven, and we felt so compelled, particularly during the pandemic, because the artists had had no shows, the art markets were closed, and they just felt like we need to collaborate, get together, form an organization, and really represent the artist on Route 66, getting ready to have a big centennial. And the art history and culture of our Native artists should come alive on Route 66 and be a major part of what's happening with the great celebration that we're looking forward to for the centennial of Route 66. After all, that is our history and that is our background.
When is the centennial?
2026.
Gosh.
It'll be here soon.
Oh, it's sneaking up on us.
Sneaking up on us.
Without moving a leaf.
Yes.
It's been said that Oklahoma may well be the only state in the continental United States where if you're going down the freeway and you see smoke coming out of the woods maybe half a mile away, that's not necessarily a farmer burning brush. It could be a ceremony that goes back
That's true.
1,000 years.
Very true.
Have you heard that?
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, I know you've seen it.
Well, I grew up in northeast Oklahoma. I've gone to, many ceremonies. That's just been a part of our life. So this is not something that most people maybe are aware of, but it's pretty hidden. Our culture is somewhat hidden, and I believe that many tribal members are wanting to make sure when they share their culture with someone that they're sharing it with someone who has respect for what they are. And so I think it is somewhat hidden.
The other thing I've learned, and God knows I'm so glad I can still learn things, but the other thing I've learned is when dealing with real Indian people, it's, you might find that person's conversation to be halting from time to time, and the simple explanation is they're having to translate what you're saying and translate what they're going to say back to you so that you understand and you know where they're coming from. It's a whole different set of problems that exist in a culture that if we're not real careful, we're going to lose the languages and we're going to lose their art.
Very true. And it's the most important aspect. I think that's the artists preserve the entire culture of our tribal people.
When I say art, I don't mean necessarily, I'm not locking it into a canvas.
No, it's the dance, it's the entire gamut.
It's the writing.
It's the writing,
storytelling, all of it.
It's sitting down here and being able to talk to each other about the fact that one of my earliest memories growing up was at Christmas, we got hand-painted Christmas cards from a family member that was an artist. And our whole family would be so excited when we'd get that Christmas card. So I think that was my very first taste of, the art experience. And it would be a big deal. We'd have it, we'd talk about it, we'd invite them over, and it just opened up conversation that was so warm and so welcoming, and it brought our families together, really.
There are two things about Indian people that have always fascinated me. One, a lot of Indian people will not carry a $20 bill.
No. In fact, Becky Hobbs is one of our members. She wrote a song, and she wrote it with one of the tribal members, and they won't carry a $20 bill.
That's number one, because that particular president
Yeah.
was responsible for the Trail of Tears.
Yes.
The other thing that seems to be is I haven't met a real Indian yet that couldn't cook.
I agree.
They could just take something out of nothing, and you can smell it a mile away.
And most people who have grown up in, an Indian background, it's like you're going to have dinner, you're going to eat first, and anyone that comes in will be served. Yeah. And growing up, certainly anyone that came to our house, we had food for them. And so anytime we're having any event, we want to include people. And after all, you break bread together and you open up that feeling of being able to sit down and talk and be a part of each other's lives. And that's a real sharing. And that's one of the things that we try to continue to do. Like we have at least 3 major events a year. And we have food served, and we don't typically, we'll have a free event and everybody's going to be served. Nobody's going to be charged for food.
It's an intriguing concept, the Indian people living the way they do. I know I have been to homes where the floors were dirt floors. Back before Ross Swimmer became chief, he introduced me to some folks where I would go in to visit at their invitation to break bread with them. And I walked into a house with a dirt floor. Not because it had rotted away, but because that's the way their home was built. I've seen people take something called buffalo grass, which even the buffalo wouldn't eat, and turn it into a buffalo grass doll.
Exactly.
For children. I know for a fact, because I've seen it, I've been there when they did it. I've seen them take things that non-Indians would discard and turned it into a magnificent piece of art.
We have a sculptor, he's from Locust Grove, his name is Charlie Nichols. He's amazing. And he brought in some sculptures and he said, I retired, and he said, one day I hadn't started sculpting, and he said, once I got started, I really couldn't stop. Mm-hmm. And so what I hear many artists express is the creators coming in and it's giving them insight into turning something. So here he takes a piece of black walnut and it's all just a very beautiful sculpture that's a covey of quail, and it's amazing. I'm sure you know Willard Stone's work, yes. And his work is Charlie Nichols' work is magnificent. We've got it in the gallery that our organization operates at Catoosa, and they're amazing pieces. And every week I'll get a call from some artist, and they bring it in. It's so exciting to me when I see the very thing you're talking about. They're taking something that maybe somebody else would just discard as useless, and they're then creating that and turning it into something that's really beautiful. And it's also a story about how you got started, what possessed you to be able to even envision. And I hear that pretty often. It's like, I just started. And so my theory's always kind of been launch and then adjust, and I kind of hear that from the artist. It's just like, let's start seeing what we can do with what we have. And I think that's a real story of the art, is taking something and turning it into a work of art, and it's beautiful and it's unique. And that's the real cultural thing that we have to present to the entire world. Is really, I think the story is making the absolute most of what you have. And I think that's a story that I got from my family, was just take what you have in life and turn it into something of beauty.
Exactly, rather than just discard it.
Right.
For a number of years I was involved with the Tulsa Indian Art Festival.
I know. I was on that board with Monetta when you were very involved.
It's
been a minute. It's been a minute.
Monetta Trapp, miss her so much.
Yes.
But we were able to talk with and watch different artists pass through the doors at
Absolutely.
those festivals, see their creations, see their handiwork, and recognize it's like any other culture. The Indian culture has its own background to draw on and to present to non-Indians and Indians alike.
Well, that's one of the things that we want. We want people to have an authentic story about who we are, coming from people who have, an Indian background, not someone else defining it or putting out the story of who and what we are, but our opportunity to share our culture with people in an authentic way, and particularly with the Route 66, with all the, international tourism that will be coming in as a result of that. It will be very big. And for years, like the Indian Art Festival, there haven't been art festivals. Some of the tribes now are, doing an art market, but that's not been a big part of what our tribal governments or anybody has been doing.
And they should be.
And they should be. It's
Very much
extremely
so, or we're going to
important.
lose them. Just like the language, and just like the tribes have all of a sudden, hey,
Yes.
wait a minute. They're saying, we got to do something to save this language.
And I say that the art is how we really save our culture. And I think our Route 66, by having the artists from several tribes, any tribe, come together, can have more impact, because Route 66 is all the way from Chicago to LA with many different tribes involved. And they're all different.
That's right.
They're different.
When you get to Illinois, did you know that Route 66 splits into 3 roads?
No, I did not know that.
It do, and it will scramble your brain.
Yeah.
Because at one time, the feds were going to take it over and use it just to ship government things,
Yeah.
ammunition, foodstuffs, just for the different, posts around the country. Listen, thank you for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure.
We're out of time, but we need to get more into this and talk
I'd love
more
for
about
that.
the
I'd
Alliance.
love for you to come by and see the Vault Gallery. That's where we have an artist exhibiting their work, and that's headquarters for our organization. It's right at the gateway to Cherokee Nation.
You can
Catoosa.
count on it.
Thank you, Sam.
You're a good Cherokee. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you more than
Okay.
you know.
All right.
That's all the time we have for this edition of Perspectives. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.